I'm down here, downtown Las Vegas, actually Dallas. I'm so used to being in Las Vegas, but I'm downtown Dallas, Texas right now, and we're at the spot where JFK was murdered down here by our own government. And behind me here is a spot in the road where there's an X that they keep there, so as a memorial site, a spot that people can recognize. This was the spot where JFK was murdered. We're here because of political prisoners. There's been so much stuff happening right here, so we thought this would be a good spot. But Schaeffer Cox is a big reason for our live stream today and what we're going to talk about. And we have Rudy and Aaron Davis with us. They have been helping out hundreds of political prisoners around the country, getting letters from them, taking phone calls. And we're going to turn the camera around here and we're going to interview them.
Hi everyone, it's Rudy and Aaron with your Schaeffer Cox update. Just letting you know that Schaeffer is rotting in a hole like a dog in a torture cell, and we need to make noise and shine light to get him out of there. It's not fair. He was unjustly incarcerated, and we're going to make noise and shine light.
Amen.
So we wanted to ask you guys a few questions about Schaeffer. You guys have been working your tails off for him, but there's a lot of people in different communities that are still a little bit confused. Who is Schaeffer Cox? Why is he in jail? And why should the community of supporters and patriots that have been following the Bundy and the Hammond and the Finnecom saga, why should they come behind Schaeffer Cox? Who is this man?
Yeah, that's a great question. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about Schaeffer Cox. As my wife said, he's sitting in a secret prison in the hole right now. They did everything they can to silence the message of this man. And who is Schaeffer Cox? Schaeffer Cox is a man that was too educated, too charismatic, too brave for the time that he was born in. Schaeffer Cox would have been a political firestorm across this country, and we advocate for his freedom. He was set up by a satanic government. That's becoming like a cliche now because there's so many of political prisoners that can say that. But we have proof that the government, the Department of Justice, the FBI entrapped him. They withheld exculpatory evidence and they destroyed evidence. And we are advocating for his freedom. We want to see him reunited with his friends and his family and his children.
Okay, so Schaeffer has children. How many children does he have?
He has two beautiful children.
And what state was he from?
I think he was originally, he grew up in Alaska, I believe, but I believe he's originally born in Colorado, if I'm not mistaken.
He was in Alaska during the incarceration,
Yeah,
time he was
right.
arrested. And let's see, what was he running for in office?
Schaeffer ran for Alaska State Representative, and in a three-way race, he got 38% of the vote. He was an incredibly charismatic speaker. Anybody that heard him speak got motivated for liberty. He talked about the Federal Reserve. He talked about the Second Amendment. People were bringing him cases of corruption in Alaska. They brought him cases of sexual trafficking of underage children. And he was pointing light to that about the Ocean View House in Alaska and how businessmen and law enforcement officials were taking advantage of underage children. And when he started exposing that, the government knew they had to silence him, and they have got him in a secret prison that was never authorized and never funded by Congress. I've got a letter that backs up that statement, what I just said. And it's for prisoners that are motivational. And so they're trying to silence his message. We're trying to get him out of there. And I call for an eradication of the FBI. People say, well, why don't you eradicate other government agencies? I say, yeah, we need to do that too, but let's start somewhere. Let's start with the FBI. They entrap and murder and set up innocent people all over this country. And I think America would be a better place without the FBI.
How long is he serving right now, Rudy?
They gave him 26 years in prison, Kelly. 26 years for conspiracy to murder federal officials charges. It's total entrapment. He said he would rather be like Gandhi than Rambo. They don't have any smoking gun on him. It was an entrapment case all the way. They brought a judge out of retirement to set him up, and they knew that this judge would not be worried about his career nor worried about impeachment. And the same prosecutors who went after Schaeffer Cox are the same prosecutors who got a false conviction on Senator Ted Stevens. We have evidence of them withholding exculpatory evidence, destroying evidence, lying before the jury. Let me ask your audience a question. Do you believe God's law is above man's law? Schaeffer Cox said that he did. He said that he did believe God's law was above man's law. I raised my hand to that too. Do you know that in front of at trial, that the prosecutor argued that Schaeffer should be put in prison a longer period of time because he believes God's law is above man's law and he's harder to be rehabilitated. And so Schaeffer was an incredible speaker. He was an honest man with integrity, and he goes against everything that the current establishment hates. And we pray for his release, and we thank God for channels like yours that advocate for him. And we want everybody to come on board because things happen when people come on board.
So is Schaeffer somebody who was ever prone to violence? Was he
Schaeffer
aggressive?
never even punched anybody in the nose, right? Schaeffer was a non-violent person. Everything that they say about Schaeffer is a lie. As far as him being a wife beater, we have the pictures, we have a statement from his wife. You're going to hear a lot of things said about Schaeffer if you start to investigate him. But I would ask that you dig a little deeper. Go to the website freeschaeffer.com. I don't know if it's here, but freeschaeffer.com. There's a website called Year of Jubilee. Dig a little deeper and ask the questions that need to be asked rather than just believing the Southern Poverty Law Center. The Southern Poverty Law Center is the biggest propaganda agent of our government that ever existed, and they all need to be put in prison too, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. Tell me about the prison that he's in. You said it was a counterterrorism unit. How many people are at this facility?
In the CMU, there's about 30 to 38 people. Most of them are Muslims. They throw in what they call balancers, Christians like Schaeffer Cox. But it's a prison within a prison. It restricts contact from the outside world. Do you know that in the last 7 years, Schaeffer has only seen his children one time, and he was not, most of the time when he receives visits, he's not allowed to contact them or hug them. It was never funded or authorized by Congress. Matter of fact, I have a letter from Congress that was asking the CMU and the Bureau of Prisons, what in the heck are you doing creating this special prison within a prison? And right now, today, they just recently, within the past week, threw him in the hole. So not only is it a secret CMU prison, and CMU stands for Communications Management Unit. Go look that up on YouTube. There's various videos on that. Most people don't even know what CMU prisons are, but Schaeffer's not just in a CMU prison with about 38 political prisoners that they want to shut up, but they threw him in the hole in the CMU prison because his message is so volatile and so just viral. If you hear Schaeffer, he is an infectious virus of liberty, and they had to shut him down. But we're going to pray for his release. We serve a mighty living God, and our God will see Schaeffer, will get Schaeffer out of prison. But we're going to be the vessels that speaks up for him.
Where is he at in his court proceedings?
Just recently he went through an appeal, and there was 2 charges that carried long prison sentences. One of them was solicitation to commit murder. One of them was conspiracy. They dropped the solicitation. One of the judges on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which, if any of you guys know anything about the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, they are a joke. But they said, what if somebody conspired to kill Mickey Mouse? That's what such a crazy case Schaeffer Cox is. He's put in prison because of a thought crime. Under conditions of government breakdown in a Stalinist area where we don't have any rule of law, you might think about protecting your family and killing somebody. It's the most insane thing I've ever heard of in my life. They dropped one of the charges. He's got conspiracy still on, and he's going to be resentenced. We give God the praise for that. And we're praying that his resentence is time served and they let him out of prison.
So I've heard statements made about his family being kidnapped, and I know there's a lot of confusion about that.
Yeah.
When was his family kidnapped, and why were they kidnapped?
I think what you're referring to is, you got to understand, when I talk about FBI informants, you got to understand the FBI is one of the biggest terrorist organizations, if not the biggest terrorist organization in this country. And we have FBI informants. Now, we have the audio of this. Now, whenever I tell anybody about the Schaeffer Cox story, they never believe me because they just think, this guy's exaggerating or this guy's blowing things out of proportion. I have the audio tapes of an FBI informant threatening to slit the throat and bleed Schaeffer's friend, as Schaeffer is standing right next to his militia friend, Les Zerbe, and threatening violence upon Schaeffer Cox. We have an FBI informant in a hotel room telling another informant, go tell Schaeffer Cox about the time I almost killed Les Zerbe. We have FBI informants threatening to kill Schaeffer Cox. Not only that, they stole $30,000 of his property, and they send in the most terrible scum of society. If you're an FBI informant, we had one guy who's a $300,000 whore. He was a lifelong government con artist, and he was lying to people and stealing his whole life. And they said, if you'll go set up Schaeffer Cox, we're going to let you out of prison. But going back to your statement about the kidnapping, Schaeffer Cox realized that the situation was getting so out of control. We got a siren here. But Schaeffer Cox realized that the situation was getting so out of control, he had a decision to make. He said, I'm going to get my fame, I'm going to leave my livelihood, I'm going to leave my business, I'm going to leave all the people that I've created friends with, and I'm going to get out of the state because I got people threatening me. Those people that threatened him were an FBI informant. And so he was fleeing the state. Is fleeing the state conducive with conspiring to murder people? No, Schaeffer was in fear for his life. And so when he was fleeing the state, the FBI informant stole the battery out of his car, and he was stuck in a house with one of his friends.
Was this before or after he was even indicted?
It was after he was indicted. There was another charge where he ran a Liberty Bell network. It's very similar to Cell 4411, Cell 411 if you're familiar with that phone application. But the Liberty Bell network that Schaeffer found was if you're in trouble with the cops, you hit a button, it notifies all your friends. They don't come to aggravate, they don't come to intimidate, but they show up to film the police to make sure everything is done constitutionally. The cops hated him. Okay, and so Schaeffer went to one of these events because somebody had broken into a house and they didn't have a warrant, and so they phoned Schaeffer Cox with the Liberty Bell network. He goes over there to film him. He has a little 22 Derringer. I don't remember the exact model of the gun, but it was a little bitty gun in his pocket. And within 63 seconds, Schaeffer notifies the policeman that, hey, I have a gun on me. And they said, nope, you didn't do it fast enough. You didn't tell us you had a gun on you fast enough. Therefore, we're going to charge you with a gun charge. And that was the first charge they got Schaeffer Cox on.
And was that a gun that was his?
Yeah, it was very legal. There's nothing illegal about it. But they just said you didn't notify the policeman. We have it on audio that within 63 seconds Schaeffer did notify him, but they said he didn't notify him fast enough.
Because ultimately this was a conspiracy to take him down. The conspiracy was against Schaeffer.
No doubt about it. They sent the CPS after Schaeffer's child because they had a picture of his child, whom he loves dearly, by the way, playing with on the rug with an ammunition, a few ammunitions. There was no gun involved, and they said, "Oh, look, he's letting his child play with ammunition on the rug. Therefore, we need to take his child away." I mean, they came at Schaeffer Cox with everything they could to try to derail him. You got to understand the context. Schaeffer is giving speeches in Alaska to 500 people, 1,000 people. People are coming from all around, and he's talking about liberty and the Constitution and the Second Amendment. And when he does that, he is putting the fear of God in the corrupt politicians in Alaska. And they said, we got to shut this man down. And we have an FBI agent. His name is Jack Ryan. He is the primary agent that went after Leonard Peltier. And he said the primary function of the FBI is to handle political dissent in America. And Schaeffer Cox was rising as a political star. The FBI interfered in the free and fair election process, and they took Schaeffer Cox down. If I sound a little animated and excited, it's because I am. It makes me mad that Schaeffer Cox is sent 6 years in prison. They have tortured him. They have done mind techniques on him to break his will. But he is a strong man of God, and we get letters from him every now and then, or at least I don't, but my wife does and others do, and they are letters about God and how God has given him strength through his tribulation. And I pray that the body of Christ, Hebrews 13:3, says to remember your brothers in bonds as if they are yourself. And I pray that we come together as the body of Christ, and just like happened in the Bundys, people came together. There's a recipe for victory. And I believe if people come together, we can see Schaeffer Cox out of prison, and all of heaven will rejoice. And I know there'll be a few barbecues, parties going on in Texas too.
How old was Schaeffer Cox when he was arrested?
He was in his early 20s.
Early 20s, speaking to 500 people.
He was homeschooled. Like I said, he was too educated, he was too brave, and he was too charismatic for the time that he was born. Schaeffer Cox did not have to be deprogrammed from the public school system. And so he was raised right. His father is a Baptist minister. His father also went to West Point, and Schaeffer was homeschooled. And so he knew everything about the Constitution. He knew everything about freedom. And because he was so powerful when he spoke about it, and he didn't have any fear, he just collected people everywhere he went. And the government said, we got to shut this man down, but what they intended for evil, God will use for good. And we're going to see Schaeffer Cox out of prison one day, and I'm telling you, it's going to be a glorious day, and he will pick up his ministry again.
How long has he been in jail now?
It's over 6 years, going on 7.
Okay, over 6 years sitting in jail, literally for words that was completely entrapment, right?
It's a complete entrapment. I have an FBI agent named Gerald J.R. Olson. We call him the $300,000 whore. On the witness stand during trial, they said, how much money do you expect to make for entrapping Schaeffer Cox? He said, I'm going to ask for $300,000. I have it in the trial transcripts. That's not me exaggerating. This scumbag that was hired by the FBI went after Schaeffer Cox and provoked him over and over and over again. They sent this scumbag in to sit at the breakfast table of Schaeffer Cox. And he was sitting at the breakfast table. He used to run drugs for Hell's Angels. Did I mention that? This FBI informant used to run drugs for Hell's Angels. And he was selling drugs. And he said, Schaeffer, what are we going to do when they come for you? Schaeffer, what are we going to do when they kill your children? Schaeffer, what are we going to do when they murder your wife?
Provoking.
He was provoking Schaeffer Cox to make statements. And then he had the ability to turn on and off the recorder. And so, who knows what context, Schaeffer, even after all of that, Schaeffer said, I would rather pull a Gandhi than a Rambo. I don't want to hurt anybody. My desire is for peace. Schaeffer was not a violent man, and he is not a violent man. He does not need to be in prison. It makes me angry to think about what the government has done to him. And some of us are never going to shut up. We are going to make noise and shine light till the day he gets out of there, or till these evildoers are held accountable.
They filmed him and recorded him for almost 2 years, and they still had no violent words from his mouth.
2 years they recorded his innermost conversation sitting at his breakfast table. They had cameras in his living room. They had cameras in his, what he thought were private meetings with his own friends. And they sent in infiltrators. And, the FBI is the biggest satanic terrorist organization of this whole country. And I call for the eradication of the FBI in America. And people think I'm too radical. I'm telling the truth. And if the truth is radical, so be it. The FBI, America would be better off without the FBI.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. So 2 years they waited because he hadn't said anything,
He
right?
hadn't said anything yet. They didn't have enough on him, and they kept having to provoke him and provoke him and provoke him. And even when they did provoke him, all he did, what did he do? What was the end result? He said, I'm leaving the state. I'm going to get the heck out of Dodge. And when he tried to get the heck out of Dodge, when he put his family in the car, he said, I'm leaving Alaska because this place is crazy. Everybody's saying all this crazy stuff. They took the battery out of the car, and he couldn't leave the state. And then he ended up he was on the run because of the gun charge I talked about earlier, and he stayed with his friend in the attic, and the informant would constantly go back to Schaeffer and say, Bill Fulton is going to kill you if he sees you. Bill Fulton had threatened your life. And so Schaeffer's like, people are out to kill me. And he had tried to warn law enforcement. He thought he had friends in law enforcement. And he went to them, and he said, he recorded it. He said, there's crazy people out there that I don't know what they're going to do. And you guys need to be aware of what's going on. And so Schaeffer was trying to report the violence, but instead they targeted him. So again, I appreciate you guys giving a platform to Schaeffer Cox. We love Schaeffer Cox. We know that he's not a violent man. And if we let this happen to Schaeffer, it can happen to any of us. And it is happening to many of us across this country right now. Schaeffer's not the only one.
Please pray for Schaeffer.
Yes,
Amen.
please do.
God can move mountains.
So we're going to go ahead and have John sit with you and talk. No, you can stay there. So we're going to swap out Aaron, and then John can talk with you for a minute. So I know we've been focused on the Bundys and the Nevada trial and the Oregon trial, and so we're trying to kind of shift gears and start giving this platform to other people that are suffering. So what do you want to say about Schaeffer?
Well, a couple of things I've noticed since I've been following this case, and I wouldn't know nothing about it really if it wasn't for you all, and a few others, but they had taken Schaeffer, they wasn't giving him no fair trial. They was keeping him, everything they was doing was railroading him.
Yes.
So all he wanted was, if anything, like the Bundys or anybody, a fair trial.
Amen.
And the Ninth Circuit District Court, wasn't the Ninth Circuit
the
Appeals Court,
Yeah.
they seen something strange here, and they dropped the charge almost 6 years later.
Right.
So 6 years after he's set in prison, they say, something's wrong here, we're going to drop this charge
That's
here.
right.
So they dropped the charge,
That's right.
and they ordered a judge to revisit the case.
Yes.
The judge hasn't done that yet.
No, we're waiting on resentencing for Schaeffer right now, and please pray that the sentencing is time served. I mean, I think all the charges should be dropped, but we just want him out of prison.
In the meantime, he's set in one of the darkest, most dangerous prisons in the United States. He's never even harmed anyone, like you said.
There's a book called Let Freedom Ring, and I believe it was edited by a guy by the name of Matt Myers, and it talks about 23 points of Chinese thought reform. The goal of this prison is to break the will of Schaeffer. If they can break his will and change him from the man that he was, they just don't want him to get out and have the same spirit of liberty that he had. It's like when you wave bye to a young boy going off to war, he doesn't come back the same. They're trying to change the spirit of Schaeffer Cox, but we pray for protection and that God will keep that spirit of liberty in that man while he's in that hellhole.
What can you tell us about the prosecutor and the charges that they later had of contempt of court for hiding evidence? Is that Schaeffer Cox's case?
You know, they have not penalized the prosecutors at all. Matter of fact, the prosecutor's name is, the lead prosecutor they just recently put back on the case, it's Joseph Bottini. Joseph Bottini is the lead prosecutor that also got a false conviction on Senator Ted Stevens. If you don't know the Senator Ted Stevens case, you need to educate yourself because all of Alaska is pissed off about it. Senator Ted Stevens was not reelected because of the FBI and how they leaked false information to the media. So Bottini, the same prosecutor who took down Senator Ted Stevens, is now on the Schaeffer Cox case, and he got penalized, Kelli. He got penalized, and there was a 525-page report, and Joseph Bottini is a known bad prosecutor. But let me say this. Another prosecutor on Schaeffer Cox's case is a lady by the name of Yvonne Lamore. Okay? She's been withholding exculpatory evidence. She's been destroying evidence. She lied to the jury. And what happened recently to Yvonne Lamore? Please let me tell you. She got promoted to an Alaska state judge. The people that are bad, the people that are good at lying, they get promoted.
Yeah, we're seeing that on every one of these cases. Not one of these cases, these bad and corrupt law enforcement or FBI,
Right,
ATF,
they're never held accountable.
They're always promoted.
Yeah, they get promoted. The better liar you are, the better you can put an innocent man in prison. What did happen to Lon Horiuchi, who shot Vicki Weaver? What happened to him? He got promoted and he was at work in Waco. They never hold the evildoers in government accountable. We need to pray for accountability in our government. My wife always says, let's pray for whistleblowers.
You would think an FBI agent just a few months before, less than a year, had taken a life of an American citizen as a sniper. And then they were still paying him. He was on duty. He got promoted and went to another standoff where he was part of where 78 people were murdered and 4 agents.
In Texas, let me tell you, when during that whole incident in Texas, we had Lon Horiuchi's picture on a milk carton, and it said "wanted, dead or alive," because nobody liked Lon Horiuchi. Lon Horiuchi should have been relieved of his duty. If he had been relieved of his duty, there might be more people alive in Waco today. But here's the problem that we got. The FBI is full of domestic terrorists, and they never hold their own accountable. I get a little excited, John. I'm sorry, brother. I get a little excited.
So I'm going to ask the $1 million question.
Okay.
How do we fix it?
You know, I think you guys have given the recipe for success. I really do. It happened with Ken Hovind. People came together all over the country. Ken Hovind went up for a federal charge. 98% of the time in a federal charge, the feds win. Ken Hovind is free today. And why is he free today? Because that courtroom was full of Bible-believing followers of Jesus. They were full of Christians and people that believed in liberty. What happened in the Bundy? You guys got some victories in the Bundy case, and it was because of your channel and people like you, and that's the recipe for success. If people come together with convictions, educated, and principled, you can beat these tyrants. I really, really believe it. We've seen it happen time and time again.
Call them out.
Amen.
There's nothing violent about that.
No!
Tell them the truth. Say who they are, and these people need to be held responsible. They
Amen.
need to be held responsible by this government.
Amen.
It's going to take us, the people, to enforce that.
Yes, we've got to stand up and call their names, and we got to be educated about the case, and we don't just sit back and have a barbecue and drink beer and wave signs. We've got to say people's name, and we've got to call the evildoers out, and we've got to call them out by name, and that's what you guys did. You guys at Bundy, the Bundy situation was an incredible, incredible example for the rest of the country, and we've got a lot of things to clean up, and the American people need to get off their butts and do it.
So we need to go to SchaefferCox.com. Is one way. Sign that petition. Share this with your friend. All you have to do is go to this website, SchaefferCox.com. Find that website. There's a petition on there. Invite 10 of your friends. You know,
Amen.
Every person counts out here. Tell them to investigate the case yourself. Don't take my word for it.
Amen.
Investigate that case. Find out what's going on. That's the biggest thing.
Amen. Hey, John, if you don't mind, no, you're good. If you don't mind me saying so, if you have any questions about Schaeffer Cox, if you read something from the Southern Poverty Law Center, or if you see some channel that says something bad about Schaeffer, you give me a call at 972-839-9848. I've heard all the negative things said about Schaeffer, and we have been communicating with Schaeffer with hundreds of letters before they banned me, and that's a whole other story, and I'll go into that later. But they said that my communication with Schaeffer threatened the good working order of the institution. That's because he was putting out information that showed he was innocent beyond any reasonable doubt. but please give me a call, and I would love to share with you any question that you have. And Schaeffer was always transparent. Matter of fact, the worst thing that you can do is not ask questions. We want people to be engaged. Educate yourself about Schaeffer. We have the information. There's no question off limits. There's no questions who done. Please investigate this man, and we've got the ammunition to win this war, and we want to get him out of prison.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you have any favorite quotes from Schaeffer that you wanted to say? Can you think of anything that...
I do. You know, his tagline is liberty always wins because tyranny self-destructs. He's full of great quotes, but the man is an inspiring writer, and I'm telling you, you know, not only is it good for Schaeffer to get out, but I'm telling you that patriots need him out. We need him in this war, and we need his voice to be louder than ever, and it's taken away from us to have him in prison. And so if we're trying to win this thing and put our country back on track, let's get him out of prison and put him back on this side of the camera and working with you guys, and I think it would be a great win. So we thank you for your support, and thank you for letting me get a little passionate.
Oh, no, we're going to bring Bob in here in a second.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Bob's going to talk to us about the...
Hey, man, thank you guys. Appreciate you guys. Love you guys. Love you, Bob. All right, man, brother.
Bob here has been on the ground here in Dallas, Texas area, and he's been pushing for jury nullification. You've been going to the overpasses and hanging these great big banners up. We tried some of it today down here in Dallas. Flying some signs, educate the people, passing out some business cards and stuff. And tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Well, one of the things we're trying to bring awareness for today is what we're doing tomorrow. We're going to have a huge Twitter event tomorrow, Twitter and Facebook. We want you to Twitter Donald Trump and Sean Hannity. Wear them out for the next 24 hours. Wear these guys out and tell them, just put up the hashtag Free Schaeffer Cox. We want awareness. We want a pardon for Schaeffer. So we're going to need you there. But I'm going to tell you something. I've got a message for you today. I volunteer for the Fully Informed Jury Association. We've got a power that's greater than this government. One person on a jury can say not guilty, and you just overturn the Congress and the president, or your state legislature. You overturn the cop, the bad prosecution, the lousy witnesses, the jailhouse snitches, all this garbage that has got us to a place we've got the world's largest prison population. We've got 2.3 million prisoners. I'll tell you this very, very quick. In the 1970s, we had 200,000 prisoners nationwide. They started this big prison population with the drug war. And now we have 1 in 3 black men going to jail. It's garbage. It does nothing for our country, and it ruins families. This is not the Christian way. So, what I want you to do is I want you to go to fija.org. I want you to start looking at some of these brochures. You can go to the library tab and then the brochures tab and learn about your powers as a juror. It just takes one person to hang a jury. That one person just saved a person's life, and he saved his spouse's life, and he saved his children's life, and he saved generations. We've got to stop this slavery. The 13th Amendment freed the slaves, but if you read a little further, it says any of those that are convicted of a crime, they are now slaves. They are slaves of the state. They are making products for the Department of Defense. They're taking care of the bases. They're the maid service. They're the landscapers for 20 cents an hour. And most of these people are in there for victimless crimes. They didn't hurt anybody. Please, I'm begging of you, when you get called to jury duty, you run down there and you serve. Make sure you set people free from victimless crimes. Harlan Stone, a Supreme Court Justice, in 1941, he said the law is on trial quite as well as the cause to be decided. Thomas Jefferson said that trial by jury is to be an anchor for our Constitution. He also said that if the judiciary gains too much power, we will lose our republic and we will lose our freedoms. Folks, we are there. We're there right now. So start educating your family. Tell them about fija.org, the Fully Informed Jury Association. Let's put this peaceful check back in on our government.
That's what we need. Like Bob just said, just one person does it. You don't matter if it's one person on a bridge somewhere that's writing one of these signs saying free Schaeffer Cox, free one political prisoner, one guy on the street. We need them white people all over America who will prevent this.
Absolutely. I go to courthouse and I hand out these brochures. This is an instantaneous way to save a life. You can get involved. All you get to do is contact fija.org and get set up and get some brochures. We'll help you get your feet planted to save lives. You'll be a superhero. You're going to be making defense against a tyrannical government. It's a peaceful way to push back, and it's cool. Stand on your principles. Don't give in. And I'll tell you what, that judge is going to keep putting people back to deliberate. You may be that only one standing strong, but stand strong. You can win this war. And when we start pushing back, just like they did in Prohibition, they had to change the laws. Let's get these laws put on trial. Let's start freeing people.
And for the people who never make it to trial, or people make it to trial and get completely railroaded, that's where we come in. That's where we show up. We are that next line of defense.
We're that war.
When the checks and balances start to fail, that last branch of government, which is We the People, steps in. Something that was really hard for me to listen to was down in Waco. Listening to David speak about the trial, it was heartbreaking to listen to him talk about the individuals that ended up being found not guilty of murdering the 4 ATF officers, but found guilty, I believe, of using a weapon against a law enforcement officer or something.
So we don't confuse it, David Thibodeau.
Yeah, David Thibodeau.
Not David Crash, but David Thibodeau.
Right, David Thibodeau, the survivor who ended up writing the book and leading the 6-part documentary that you absolutely should go watch. Listening to him talk yesterday, I felt like I was back in the courtroom in Oregon, or back in the courtroom with Nevada and Judge Navarro. And it was really difficult to sit and listen and think, so many people are suffering in these courts where evidence isn't being allowed in. He said over and over, key witnesses weren't allowed in to come and testify. They weren't allowed to bring in the evidence that the metal door had gone missing. I know this is about Schaeffer, but the metal door had gone missing after the fire, and that metal door would have proven their innocence. It would have proven that shots were being fired from the very beginning. And those 4 officers who died, and were so grieved that they died, but they died attacking their fellow man and opening fire on innocent women and children. A woman was hit that day by one of those bullets, and that metal door disappeared. They said it burned when other doors didn't burn that were the same. And listening to him talk about all of this and just realizing and being out here at the JFK site and seeing that when the courts don't get it right, and when the courts fail us, and the people lose confidence in the courts, we have to show up. Be principled, be peaceable, but by golly, you hold their feet to the fire and you tell them this is not okay. I don't care if you have to camp in front of the courthouse. You don't camp until a certain date comes. You camp until justice is delivered to these individuals. We don't speak for them. Who's going to speak for us? I'm out speaking for Schaeffer and for the victims of Waco and Lavoy Finicum, because someday my turn will come. If I'm unwilling to comply with tyranny and abuse of my neighbor, then my day will come, and I'm going to need you guys, and I'm going to expect you guys to come and stand for me and to hold their feet to the fire. So that's what we're asking for you guys to do for Schaeffer at this point, to be willing to show up when he needs us to show up. Go to your local courthouses, go to a bridge, go wherever you have to go to hold these tyrants accountable. Because even if this ship sinks, let's not go down and just give up. Let's go down fighting for justice and liberty for all. So we're thankful that you guys listened, and we definitely are thankful for Rudy and Aaron Davis and Angela Clemens and all of the work that has been done for Jeff Winehouse and so many Edna Lena Brown and so many other political prisoners out there. I know it's overwhelming, you guys, but as soon as you make contact with one of these prisoners and you see the heart of them and you realize the injustice, you'll see why we're out here doing this. The emails I received from Schaeffer that my family, my husband, and my kids have read has absolutely broken our family in the last month. We've known about his story, but we didn't have the emotional energy to focus on it, to see the type of man he is. Anytime any of us write back and say that we're so sorry for his struggles, he says, don't pity me. I'm a man. My shoulders can handle this weight. It's what God created me for, is to suffer for righteousness. And when I read that, it just breaks my heart to think that this man is suffering and he's standing so strong after so many years, and he still has such a long road ahead of him if they hold him for the entire next 20 years. We can't let him suffer alone, you guys. These people that are suffering in these jails have been politically targeted or financially targeted because they're profiting off of them, no matter what level of the spectrum you go at. I don't care if they're black, if they're illegal immigrants, if they're the political prisoners, they got caught with drugs on them. They're not being held to rehabilitate them. They're being held because they make money on them. That bothers me. That bothers me a lot. That's hostages, that's slavery on U.S. soil, and it should bother you too. So thanks for listening, you guys, and please join the Twitter event tomorrow. 76 on YouTube. You can also go to freeschaeffer.com. You can also go to the Schaeffer Cox Facebook page and get more information and learn how to support this man and his family, because he definitely needs our help.
One big question, or one big thing on this is people should know is that if these people were so dangerous, it shouldn't take them 2 years to arrest them.
No.
Schaeffer Cox, 2 years. The Bundys, 2 years. So this is one thing that people should realize. These people are out there like us every day. They trump up charges for 2 years.
Yep, and one last thing about Waco, just to set the narrative straight, the only reason they even went in the way they did, just like they could have arrested Ammon and Lavoy in town, they could have arrested David Koresh, served him a warrant in town at any time. They didn't do it because they had to justify the existence of the ATF before they were defunded and merged it together with the FBI. So the more you guys can understand what's going on behind the scenes, the more you know how to hold them accountable and tell them, absolutely not. You're not going to create crime so that you can justify your existence. That's literally like the prosecutor being also the informant out on a case, or the prosecutor being on the jury. That's not justice. That's not American. If you guys want to help us turn this around, you got to plug in and show up and get to know these people. And just imagine if this was your son. This was your son or daughter sitting in prison, or if your grandchildren were sitting there wishing their dad was home. What would you want the American people to do in a peaceful